I think it should be much easier to treat Lyme disease than some of the problems we have with politics. So I say, yeah, be very cautious about politics and seek immediate treatment if you're exposed to any politics that carry organisms that can infect us in our discourse and in our lives.
On a more serious note, I wonder if you could be more specific about diet in terms of A, what foods to avoid for exacerbating this and what foods to seek for reinforcing the
So could I actually answer?
Yeah, sure.
One thing, there's a website called essenceoflife.com. It will tell you quite a bit about alkaline diets. You want an alkaline diet, no sugar, no white flour, lots of roughage, lots of vegetables, lean organic meats.
What about yogurt?
If it's plain and it doesn't have sugar,
Yes,
it
yes.
could be okay, yes.
You make your own.
Yeah, I mean, again, and then dairy, people have sensitivities to dairy, and dairy
Yes.
could be another thing to exacerbate autoimmune disorders like gluten and sugar. So it all is relative to that factor too.
But the more alkaline your body is, the better chance you have of fighting it off, because Lyme is attracted it's attracted to toxins, it's attracted to acidic bodies, and many Americans have acidic systems because of all the junk and the alcohol and the sugar.
And stress.
And stress. Stress is extremely toxic.
On the ILADS website, ilads.org, there's advanced topics in Lyme disease, and it has a list of recommended dietary approaches. What I recommend with people that I think are sick is that they go to an elimination diet initially. Basically, go to brown rice and steamed vegetables for a week, and then start slowly adding things back in. Probiotics, yogurt, if that's one of the things that makes you feel healthy and keeps your gut healthy, you try that first. If you get sick from it in that second week, then you have to knock that out and get another source of probiotics. But I like it as a source if a person is tolerating it. And it really is a situation in which if you test yourself for what works for you, you're going to do better. These approaches, and I agree with everything that Barbara said and what I said earlier, I've seen people eat sugars and get really, really sick when I thought they had Lyme. So those are really bad. But some of the other things, if you really love caffeine and you don't think it makes you sick, then I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't take it. Just be alert so that if you do get worse when you drink your coffee, that you can decide then whether that's worth it to you or not. Let me get some folks back in the back that haven't had a question yet.
Yes, several months back I realized I had several very obvious signs of Lyme disease, even though I did not have a tick or a rash. And normally I don't rush to antibiotics, but I've heard so many horror stories that I did take the normal course of antibiotics. I still did not feel well after the prescribed 10 days, or 21, whatever it was, so I did a month. In the meantime, I could not play with this. I teach yoga and practice, and that's my life and my livelihood, so I was not going to mess around with this. In the meantime, a very concerned and lovely, dedicated practitioner, Barbara Rosen, had told me, has done a tremendous amount of research and was lovingly offering it, including Rife machine, and then finally she found out that Eric Tischler indeed had that, and I had heard wonderful things about Eric, but didn't want to spend the money to go unless it was an emergency, so I went, and he did his testing and Rife machine and gave me little homeopathic remedies, and I have to say, I can say I had Lyme disease because I'm, God willing, about 97% not feeling it. I'm very sensitive to what goes in my body, and after the antibiotics, maybe it wasn't enough, but it was not doing the trick. So I just want to offer my gratitude to Barbara and to Eric, and I pray that it's really gone and not just hiding, and that other people will be able to have great benefits as I have.
Most Lyme disease patients, thank you, know their bodies better than other patients. They've been through a lot, and they're sensitive to most most things, and they know what affects them and what doesn't. And so when the doctor might say you're done with your antibiotics, and they say no, we're not, they're usually right in that case.
Patient's right.
Yes.
About 3 years ago, I got Lyme disease. I didn't know I had it until I got brain fog, paralysis of the jaw, and extreme fatigue. I felt like I was dying so bad that I wrote out my will. That's how bad it was. And I got a blood test, and indeed I had it. And I wouldn't take antibiotics because that brings down the immune system, and I needed my immune system more than anything. So, and it was too late anyway. So I tried a million things, and I tried colloidal silver, Pau de Arco, maximum strength, cat's claw, the Rife machine, and all kinds of things. What ultimately worked for me was artemisinin, because all these bugs are anaerobic. They can't stand oxygen. And the molecule of artemisinin, which is sweet wormwood, by the way, when it meets the iron in the microbe, they all need iron to reproduce. When it meets the iron, it literally explodes hydrogen peroxide all over it, just like a white corpuscle does. And so now I had 3 recurrences, both in knees, and first recurrence, I didn't realize it was that. So I waited a little bit. So the artemisinin took a little longer to. The second recurrence, I attacked it right away. And the third recurrence, I attacked it right away, all in the knees. And now, and for a year and a half, I take artemisinin once a month. And I have had no recurrence or anything for a year and a half.
How do you spell that?
How do you spell that?
Artemisinin. Spelled it out for me. Artemisinin, right?
Right.
Yep.
What is that?
How long did you use it
Artemisinin.
for with each occurrence?
Say again?
How long did you use it for each occurrence?
3 up to 200 milligrams.
Not for how long though? A week?
Oh,
2?
just one day.
1 day. Wow.
One day.
1 day a month.
Uh-huh.
And now the other thing, the first time I took it for 30 days. And I happened to go to a VA doctor for a checkup, and he was alarmed because my liver was spilling out an enzyme, and he got very excited. So he said, I want to see you in a week. And in that time, I took milk thistle. And when I went back, he said, oh, it's nothing. So that proved that the milk thistle worked. So when you take the artemisinin in the morning on an empty stomach, take the milk thistle at night, so you'll have no problem.
Thank you for sharing that experience. I'm glad you had that very great response.
Was that in homeopathic form, or what form did you?
That's in concentrated sweet wormwood. It's the essence of sweet wormwood.
How many milligrams?
It's 200 per pill.
Problem is,
Milligrams.
it's highly toxic. I was just reading about that the other day, and I'd be cautious about, doing it without a doctor's supervision and get finding your liver enzymes went up to the sky, because wormwood is very toxic. You take too much, it can kill you. So you don't have to worry about Lyme disease anymore.
Well, I took two pills every day for a month, and it's only then that my liver showed spillage.
Yeah. The reason that I am an allopathic doctor instead of an herbalist is that I like to know what the dose of something is, so that I know that I'm getting the same amount all the time, and I like to have something where people have studied it and they know what the side effects are and at what dosage and at what course. But, so that's my bent, and that's why I invested in that. One of the reasons I like herbal approaches is that Western medicine doesn't do everything we need it to do. And certainly with Lyme disease, that's the case. I've seen patients that were allergic to virtually everything that we wanted to use for them from Western medicine, from allopathic medicine. So there's a place for the herbal approach, and I think it needs to be done carefully and under a lot of supervision so that if there is a negative reaction, we catch it quickly. Because unless it's a skilled, experienced practitioner, they may not know as well what to expect and when it might occur. And even a skilled, experienced practitioner would want to have a really close hands-on if they're using herbal preparations in high doses over long periods of time, just as an experienced, sensitive allopathic doctor would want to do that.
Just in addition, it also kills parasites, so you get a double benefit.
You're all clean now.
I just wanted to know how much milk thistle the gentleman took every night.
That's not at all toxic, so you get the highest dosage pill you could get and take one a day.
What is the current situation with the testing that the labs do? The reason that I asked that question, a while back, I know I went to a physician that was very involved in lines, and he only would send the test out to California to one particular lab because he felt that the system that was in use many times came up with a negative finding, which really wasn't what it was.
So the question is about the lab tests that are used, and is it necessary to use just a specific lab so that you can get accurate results? My sense is that there are labs that are much better at this than others, and one of the reasons to go to somebody who sees patients with Lyme a lot is that they will have found those labs. The screening test for Lyme that is used first is the ELISA, which just measures a kind of general antibody response. And it's often negative even when a person later shows up to have Lyme on other testing. You can also send for a Western blot, which gives you a more specific response of the antibodies and can give you an idea of whether the person is infected. There is generally go on. Even then, you can have a person who responds as though they have the Lyme organism, but you can't document that they have it. I think if a person responds to the treatment as though they have Lyme, keep giving them that treatment, whether you want to call it Lyme or not. If they don't respond, though, then I think that's a situation where you have to look for either a better way to diagnose, try to get a culture. You keep looking if you really have a strong suspicion that Lyme is there. But yes, I think that there are laboratories that do this much better than others, and I would go to a laboratory that tends to give positives, because then you can start a treatment. If a person isn't responding to the treatment, it might have been a false positive, but that person's not going to be hurt as much, I think, as a person who's gotten a false negative.
What's the cause of DNA?
What's the cause of it?
No, called. What's it called?
Called, it's PCR, polymerase chain reaction. So you can ask for a PCR test for Lyme, and your doctor, there is a lab in Kingston that will send out for that.
There's also a national lab, I forgot the name of it.
Biogen?
There are a number of offices in Kingston. It does one test called CD57, which I believe...
Well, that's different. CD57 is a test of a specific type of immune cell, which is often very low in patients who have Lyme. And so it's a marker for it, but it's not a diagnosis of it, because other infectious conditions can also make your CD57 levels affect your
Okay.
low. But that is a good test. I haven't I haven't used it myself, and I don't know clinicians who've used it as much, but it's reported in the literature to be very helpful. So if there's anybody who is working with a clinician who's using it, let me know and I'll get in touch with that clinician. I don't actually see patients currently, but I try to find the clinicians who are doing things in a way that makes sense to me based on what I have done and what I continue to read and hear from people, like Artemisinin.
Artemisia?
Artemisia.
But what if you're sick and you end up with ehrlichiosis or one of the other
Parasites?
Parasites.
well,
Yeah.
the one
Tick-related diseases.
Tick-related, the one tick may give you Who knows?
Co-infection, yeah.
You can have babesiosis or ehrlichiosis, Bartonella, several others. So if a person is not responding to the agents that usually work with Bordeaux, then you go to the antibiotics that cover for those other agents. It can be a long course of antibiotics. It can be extremely important to have somebody who can help protect the gut during that if you're trying to use the gut. I try to use oral antibiotics as much as possible, but in some circumstances the intravenous antibiotics may have a role, especially in some of those other agents, because the gut just can't handle all those antibiotics without it affecting the normal gut flora.
So keep taking your probiotic.
Definitely.
What's the role of magnesium?
I've used magnesium a lot because the organism seems to cause it gets into the connective tissue and it tightens things up. If you've ever looked at a piece of meat, it has that sheath around it that holds the muscle. That's connective tissue. So if you can imagine that our muscles are in those kind of sheaths and then they get this organism living in those tissues, it can squeeze. And magnesium relaxes the muscles.
So
you can take it orally, and just the dose that you would normally take as a supplement could be enough. That's what I recommend people begin. And if they get some relief, but not enough, then they take a little more.
What is that dose?
Magnesium, I don't know the dose off the top of my head.
Start with what's recommended, with what you
On the
get.
bottle.
Yeah, but you have magnesium oxide, which they say is hard to get into the system when you have magnesium.
Sulfates.
I want to add to that, I also take magnesium in 3 different forms because I know that maybe 1 or 2 of them are not absorbed that well. To make sure I get magnesium, I take it in 3 different ways.
Which way?
I have a liquid form that I actually had to send away for, and then magnesium asparate. I can't remember all the names.
Magnesium citrate is
Citrate.
very
Yeah.
Okay, but just to make sure that I get enough of that. Very important for the immune system.
But its effect on the gut is as a cathartic, so you can get diarrhea from it. So that's why I say start at just, the dose on the bottle at the health food store is a good place to start. And for many patients, that will be enough to help with the muscle twitching and spasms that a lot of patients with Lyme get.
My grandmother used to say, you have to eat a peck of dirt a year. And, I never use Purell. I think that in one way, I know you need antibiotics sometimes. I've used them too. But our digestive system has evolved with us over millions of years, and there's certain I don't know if
Parasites.
not parasites, certain organisms that have evolved with us, and we don't want to kill them. We want to promote. And this culture of, we hate germs, we hate, biotics, we hate, and things like Purell, always, purifying your hands with that. I never use that stuff. But I think we've gone too far in the other direction.
I think there's an argument that can be made for that, and people that don't want antibiotics, I don't push them to take them. If they're taking herbals, they're, in my view, taking antibiotics, though, because the natural world is full of things that actually encourage organisms to move on to their next plane of existence, you might think of it as. So the herbals are having an antibiotic type of effect in many cases. The energy healing maybe is a little different, but even then, I think we're telling certain organisms, certain levels of vibration to shift to a different kind of vibration. So, as a public health measure, I offer antibiotics to people because I think there are, in many cases, people are not as in touch with their bodies. Don't have a healthy gut and immune system. At the same time, I try to move them in the direction of getting that healthy gut and immune systems so they don't need to come back for antibiotics again. But I'm not going to tell them at the time that they're sick to kind of become the monk that I said they should become. I mean, I do. I say, if you become monastic in your approach, you will feel better. And that is actually true probably for every one of us in this room, right? We don't have to wait to get sick to move in that direction. But if they're sick and the antibiotic gives them some assistance, then I encourage people to find somebody who will do that for them. Then we should also, just one other thing on that,
Yes, yes.
we should be careful to make sure that we have a septic system, which I prefer, that can handle breaking down that antibiotic so it doesn't go to the people and the biotics that don't need it.
What do you mean?
Centralized sewer systems take bacteria out of the sewage, and they take a lot of it out, but they don't take the antibiotics out. They don't take hormones out. They don't take heavy metals out. A septic system, a good septic system, with a peat moss is even the best, will remove much more of that, and the organisms, the plants in your yard, in your leach field, will break down many more of the antibiotics. So I think we need to really look at ourselves as a very, very big organism and not just think about what we're doing and not just attack some other organism and keep attacking through our sewage as well.
One little,
Just a second.
No.
We need to end this. Somebody who hasn't asked a question.
I just want to offer a couple of things from my own experience. I'm a Lyme of the Babesia sufferer. I've had very good treatment allopathically and otherwise. Richard Horowitz's book has to be approached with caution because you can get intern syndrome from it. There's a great chart in there, and if you read that chart, if you're not in absolutely perfect health, I defy you to not find something that you're going to be wanting to test for. So be careful when you read it. Second thing, Green Dragon Botanicals is extremely busy. If you try to phone them or contact them by email, they might not contact you back, but they have great remedies, and it takes a little while to get them. If you want to get them, order soon. The last thing I want to say is there is an excellent tick disease support group that meets once a week in Woodstock area. If you'd like to be put on the contact list for that, give me your contact information and I will forward it to the people that run the group. It meets once a month, fourth Wednesdays, at the Sudbury School up on Xena Road at 7 o'clock. As far as I know, there's a meeting this week, but be careful that you don't just automatically go there. Give me your contact information, I'll forward it to the people who put you on the email list. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, everybody, for coming. We promised that we would leave this room promptly, so have a great evening.